gentlemen, today we are going over a relentless rundown of the Sunday night matchup between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Seattle Seahawks. This was a back and forth affair that went into overtime, and I am super excited to be able to cover it all for you. We are going to do a full game recap, my thoughts on each team, and then break down individual plays and momentum shifters of this game and where this actually changed the outcome. If you are new or if you haven't done it yet, please like and subscribe. It really helps me out and enables me to do what I love so I can keep bringing you the content that you love. And without any further ado, let's get into this week's Relentless Rundown. We're going to start with the road team in Seattle, and they really struggled, especially offensively, early on. They could not seem to get anything going, they had no rhythm, and they looked lost out there for much of the first half. It ended up being too much to overcome as they allowed a 14-0 deficit to get the better of them. They were solid in the second half, but again, down 14, that's not going to be enough. I love what Seattle was able to do on the ground, and it was very surprising to me that they were able to do it against that vaunted Steelers front seven. Alex Collins, who was filling in for an injured Chris Carson, ran for over 100 yards and looked really good throughout doing it. They're going to need to continue to lean on this as they try to take pressure off of Geno to open up that passing game for him. And that passing game was very poor in this game. It sputtered throughout and it looked disjointed and lost. Not only was Geno Smith unable to get his main guys involved in this game, between Tyler Lockett, who didn't catch a pass until the third quarter late, and DK Metcalf, those guys combined for 93 yards. And you think about the studs, and for that to be what they are able to produce, that is not going to cut it. Seattle is going to have to find a way to get some more balance in this offense if they want to pick up wins moving forward. When we look at the defensive side for the Hawks, for me, they actually looked really good. They were able to hold Najee Harris to just 3.5 yards on the ground, which is spectacular because he is one of the stud young backs in this league. And they also didn't allow Ben Roethlisberger to find a rhythm whatsoever. And we know that this passing game is predicated on that because they do not take deep shots, and those short passes, Seattle was able to rally to the ball. They were able to gang tackle and not give up yards after the catch, which ended up being huge. I think Seattle has to feel good about how they played overall, especially after that slow start. They were able to turn things around in the second half. Their defense did enough to keep them in it until that offense woke up. They have to, however, be super disappointed that they weren't able to come out with the win. They had some opportunities to steal it away from Pittsburgh in this game that they just didn't capitalize on. They had a big play in the fourth quarter where Ben Roethlisberger kind of fumbled past it, and it set the Hawks up in great field goal position. They were actually within range of kicking it when they started the possession. However, on 3rd down and 10, they lose 4 yards on a completed pass, and they end up punting it away. So to not get points there was huge. Then later on in the fourth quarter, with about 5 minutes to go, there was another key possession where Jamal Adams, who happens to be the highest paid safety in the entire NFL, drops an INT that would have not only went the other way, but it would have prevented the Steelers from getting a field goal of their own. So you take away 3 points on one possession, you take away 3 points on another, you lose by 3. That's how you don't win these close games. At 2-4, Seattle has a ton of work to do if they want to get back into the playoff hunt, and they're going to probably need to win their next 2 games against New Orleans and Jacksonville at home, because after that they have Green Bay and Arizona. Those are going to be really tall tasks for this team. For me, this does not really look like a playoff caliber team because of their defensive struggles as well as all the injuries that they are currently dealing with. On the Steelers side of things, their defense was absolutely dominant in the first half, which is exactly what I expected it to be. They gave up 65 yards on 21 total plays, just 3 first downs for Seattle, and they forced 4 3-and-outs. All that, and then the second half happened. They gave up 250 yards to Seattle in the second half in overtime, and you think about an elite defense, they need to be able to shut down teams like this if you want to be legit. They were able to rack up 5 sacks, they forced 3 fumbles, and they ultimately had that game-clinching fumble in overtime, so you love the resilience that they showed. They held Seattle to just 25% on third downs as well, so it's not like they played poorly. I just expected a better performance overall because of the team that they were facing and the injuries that they had. The offense for Pittsburgh is another story completely, and this is due to an inability to move the ball vertically. They looked really poor. The Steelers had 7 players catch a pass. Not one of them averaged double-digit yards in those catches. It was dink and dunk all day. Seattle, on the other hand, with Geno Smith leading the charge, had 4 players do that, and 2 of them averaged over 20 yards a catch. So when you compare the situations and the offenses, the Steelers need to do more with what they had. Big Ben was 29 of 40 for 229 yards. That means he averaged a measly 5.7 yards per completion. Yikes. He looked slow, he looked old, and he looked incapable of running this offense, and he put a ton of pressure on Najee Harris. He was able to carry a big workload. He had 30 touches in this game, but he's not going to be able to do that over the course of the season. They need to find a balance. I thought Pittsburgh was going to win this game fairly comfortably, but they were barely able to hold on to that 14-0 lead that they banked at halftime. At home, instead of really showing a killer instinct and going for the jugular for the win, they broke and immediately allowed Seattle to score an opening possession touchdown, which not only took the crowd out of it, but it gave a little bit of hope to that Seattle defense that their offense was going to be able to back them up. Pittsburgh did just enough to beat a mediocre team without its stud running back and its stud quarterback, and that's probably going to be a different story next week against Cleveland. Now, they do get the Bears and the Lions after that, so there is hope for this team. Could potentially be a 5-4 squad, and that would keep them in that playoff hunt, but I do not see them really as anything more than a 7 seed, which has recently been added, thankfully for them. And they're going to need to find a way to put together a full game if they want to continue. Let's now move to the key turning points of this game and talk about where momentum shifted and where this game was won and lost for these teams. We go all the way to the end of the first half where not a ton happened, but right now it's 7-0 Pittsburgh. Seattle's defense has played really well and been able to hold off the Steelers. For Pittsburgh, they leaned heavily on Deontay Johnson. He was easily the favorite target of Roethlisberger, and he actually was targeted on a 3rd and 3 that was incomplete that would have killed the drive. However, there is an offsides on the Seahawks, a pretty boneheaded play that gave them a first down inside the red zone. So instead of forcing Pittsburgh to try a longer 40-plus yard field goal, they actually give them an opportunity to put a second touchdown in the first half and really extend this lead. And the Steelers would be able to do just that. Now, props to the Seattle defense who was able to stuff Najee Harris on 1st and 2nd and goal inside the 5, but a great play call by Pittsburgh on 3rd down. They give a 2-yard handoff to the tight end, Eric Ebron, who gets into the end zone to make it 14-0. And with that lead starting to stretch, you could feel the pressure on the Seahawks to respond. As the second half starts, you really wanted to see, from a Steelers perspective, their defense continue to lock down and just really close this one out. You have a 2-touchdown lead, you're at home, you got the crowd behind you, let's salt this one away and get out of here. However, Seattle came out with a purpose on their first possession. They gave it back-to-back times to Alex Collins, who was able to rack up 40 yards on just 2 carries and really get this offensive attack kick-started. On the possession, they pretty much ran it down Pittsburgh's throats from start to finish. The drive would be capped by a 2-yard touchdown run by Alex Collins, and it gave that defense some hope, it gave that offense some stability, and it really turned the tide for this team to get them back in it. Their defense would hold the Steelers to a field goal on the ensuing possession, and then Seattle's able to storm down the field again, scoring a touchdown to close the lead to 17-14. The Hawks defense again would respond, causing the Steelers to go 3 and out, and then for their third straight scoring possession in the second half, it was all about Alex Collins running it down the field and getting the Seahawks into field goal position to tie this one up at 17, which is where we see our next huge play of the game. After Pittsburgh picks up a couple first downs, Roethlisberger goes back and kind of pump fakes it, but then doesn't want to throw it, and ends up fumbling the ball. I'm not sure exactly what he was trying to do, but it ended up being a critical turnover that would give the Hawks the ball at the Pittsburgh 35 with a chance to take the lead. So what do the Seahawks do? They've already scored now 3 straight possessions. Their offense is looking hot. Instead, they absolutely crumble on this possession. After 2 no gains, they face a 3rd and 10 where they're able to complete a pass for -4 yards. So they start at the 35, they end at the 39, and actually end up having to punt the ball away after starting the possession in field goal range. With a chance to take the lead to go up 2017, on the road, you have to take advantage. With the way Seattle was running the ball, especially in that second half, I wouldn't have really blamed the play calling if they would have just ran the ball up the middle 3 times. Worst case scenario, you gain a couple of yards and you can take the lead on a field goal. They tried a couple passes, they ended up losing 4 yards on it, and it goes the other way, putting their team in a horrible position. The final key play of regulation comes with 1 minute and 30 seconds to go after the Steelers had just taken a 20-17 lead. Seattle has the ball at their own 25, and they have 2 timeouts. So this is a position where you think, hey, that Steelers elite defense is going to be able to step up, stop the Hawks, maybe force a Hail Mary at the end of it that comes up short and get out with a win. If you are playing at that level at home, that's what you would expect. Instead, they give up sideline and screen passes, little slants over the middle, over and over again for decent yardage. That's allowing the Hawks to move the ball into field goal range with the potential to tie it. With about 15 seconds left, they complete a final pass to DK Metcalf, who takes a couple steps, makes a move upfield, and gets tackled. Now the ball comes out, looked like a clear fumble, and is recovered by the Hawks, and as they rush to the line to try to spike it, the refs stop the game. I've honestly never really seen anything like it. I'm not sure why they wanted to review it because it was pretty clear and obvious. It was a huge advantage for Seattle because it allowed them to take a breath, not have to rush the field goal unit out. They could set up their play, spike it with 3 seconds, and actually go back and kick it. So it ends up not really mattering because it happened with 1 second. They still would have had a field goal, but it definitely gave the Hawks some added time and removed some of that pressure. The 43-yard kick would be good, and we would head to overtime. Seattle would start with the ball and have an opportunity to win it, and after a decent drive, it would be ended by a sack by TJ Watt, his first of 2 in the overtime period, and they would have to punt. On a 3rd down and 3, there was a great completion out for the Steelers that was stuffed just 1 yard short on an awesome tackle, and Seattle would get the ball back. Now time is running down. They start at their own 15-yard line, and they're probably thinking, worst case scenario, we get out with a tie. It was not to be, however, as Geno Smith would have his 2nd game-clinching turnover in back-to-back weeks. He actually had TJ Watt hit him from behind. Watt was blocked by 3 offensive players for Seattle, and they just got lazy and couldn't get it done and allowed Watt to kind of punch it out, and the ball would be turned over. It would give the Steelers position to end this game on a short field goal, which they did. Now this was certainly a high effort, will, and energy play by TJ Watt, so I don't want to take anything away from him, but I was really disappointed in the blocking by Seattle on this play. A couple of guys were kind of just standing around looking for someone to block instead of finding a body, and it ended up costing them the game. So that critical moment, they do a critical error, and that is how you lose. Please drop any questions, comments, or disagreements down below. That's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new or haven't done it yet, please like and subscribe. This is Relentless Press. I am your host, Abraham Opax, and we'll see you next time.